Hello and welcome to our Post-16 Pathways event. Thank you for watching this introductory video. Normally we run this as a kind of live event in the evening, but obviously this year, because of COVID, we're trying to do things differently, but still trying to give you really important information at such an important stage in your child's education. So first of all, the format of this evening. We're going to start off with three presentations, around about 10 minutes each. I'm going to run through some tips on how to be an effective learner. Mrs. Haller is going to go through how to use GCSE Pod effectively. And then Mrs. Calder, our careers officer, is going to look at post-16 education choices. So for example, sixth form routes, vocational courses at college and apprenticeships. Then you'll have a choice of videos. You can watch a short presentation from our own sixth form. Nico have provided some information on higher education, university education. There's information on apprenticeships, and there's also a presentation from Suffolk New College. If you have any questions or queries, please get in touch with our careers team. The email is at the bottom of the screen. So our Year 11s are now facing two choices. They can either stay in full-time education at school or college, or they can look to move into work-based learning through an apprenticeship. Now, it's really important to note that there aren't many apprenticeships around at the moment, so the vast majority of our students, well over 90%, I think it's actually 95%, actually carry on and go to sixth form, or they go to a college. Now, there's a lot of support for the students in terms of taking those crucial next steps. Mr. Gaffney, the Progress Director for Year 11, is doing careers lessons with all of Year 11s. We've got two careers advisors and students can make appointments to see them. Mrs. Flame is also providing information and guidance for next steps, as are form tutors, and also students should be encouraged to ask their class teachers about next steps as well. So as I said, a lot of students are going on to sixth form or further education. So please watch the videos from Suffolk New College and Northgate Sixth Form Centre, because they'll give you an idea of the possibilities that are out there. My job is to focus on how students should be learning effectively. We're lucky enough as a school to be working with exam study experts. And we've also taken part in the 2020 revision census to look at how students are revising across the country, but also thanks to expert people kind of having an input into that, how they should be learning. And what's very clear is that students need three things to learn effectively. The first thing is they need the motivation. And we've found that having good careers advice and having a clear goal for the next step in their education is absolutely crucial. So they should be aiming for something. So they need to think to themselves, where do I want to be this time next year? Purposeful practice is really important. I haven't put simply practicing or doing homework. It's got to be using the right techniques. We only learn what we can remember. So it's really important that students are using the right revision techniques. And it's one of the key things a parent can do, not to kind of continually say you must be working harder, but to actually say, are those techniques actually working? What kind of techniques are you using to help you learn information? And then also students need coaching, and that's where we as teachers come in. So the Homework and Revision Centre is now open 4 days a week, and lots of departments are offering after school support classes where students can go in and get extra help on top of what's happening in the lessons. And the main message there is it's the lessons that really make the most difference, and students being really focused in those lessons is absolutely crucial. So employers are looking for students with good study habits, students who can learn effectively and who don't give up, who show resilience, who show determination, are willing to learn new skills. It's also worth noting that they'll also be looking at the references we provide as a school. So this particular year, it's important that Year 11s show themselves in the best possible light, so they get a good reference, they know how to learn, and they get a good set of qualifications that will lead them on to the next step, their goal for post-16 education. The most important tip I can give is that all of the successful students that I've interviewed, and this comes through the revision census as well at a national level, successful students regularly test themselves. They don't leave revision until the last minute. They don't see revision or learning as simply just reading through stuff in their folder. They're really active in their approach to studying. So they use past papers to test themselves. They use quizzing apps such as Cram and Quizlet, working out what they don't know and then doing something about it. Paired testing is really important. So this is where parents can help. Students may have been given a set of flashcards, or they may have made their own flashcards, and students can ask themselves to be tested by their parents on those flashcards. Lots of pretty notes, lots of really detailed mind maps aren't particularly useful. The key thing is to try and recreate mind maps or diagrams from memory. So we call that blank page retrieval. Blank sheet of paper, right, I'm going to test myself now on how much I can remember, work out what I couldn't remember, and then do something about that. So the diagram on the right here shows this as a flow chart, that really what we want students to do is to test or quiz themselves, try a past paper, work out what they don't know, identify which topics then to revise and work on and to go back over, and then test themselves again and see if they've improved. Students who engage in repeated testing or quizzing recall 50% more than those who just simply read through their notes or make notes. So the key here is effortful retrieval. Students really having to work hard to retrieve material that they have been learning, and that strengthens the memory traces and enhances long-term memory. So when we quiz ourselves or when we test ourselves, we either remember it accurately, and that's great because your memory becomes significantly stronger, or we find out what we don't know. So that then acts as a way diagnostically of us then thinking, right, now this is what I need to concentrate on. This is what I really need to study hard at. And retrieval practice facilitates learning because we're hardwired to learn from our mistakes. So if we start with a quiz or a test and we make some mistakes or we get things wrong, that's great because it shows us where to work, what to work on next, where to go in terms of our revision. I've seen a lot of students saying that they're revising or learning and they're just simply reading through stuff that they already know. But to start with a quiz or a test is definitely the best way to go. And if you look at effective techniques, those ones in next to the green box, practice papers, flashcards, pair testing, quizzing apps, blank page retrieval from memory, trying to retrieve things from memory onto a blank page, really, really effective techniques. But if you look at the national census, students aren't always spending their time using the right techniques. Sadly, if you look at the statistics next to the red box, something that can be very, very ineffective for learning and very ineffective for memory, which is simply rereading, just picking up your book or a revision book and just reading through it. 19% of students are using that as a technique, but it isn't really effective at all. So it's trying to look at those techniques in the green box or some of those ones in the amber box and using those techniques, not just simply reading through revision resources or watching a video on YouTube. Students need to be doing something active. The other key tip that we've been sharing with our students is the importance of spaced learning. So we don't want students just to revise something or learn something and then test themselves on it straight away, think, yeah, I've done brilliantly, that's it. Students need to keep coming back to that information. So if we look at this famous diagram about the forgetting curve, over time we will forget what we've been learning. So the important thing is to space our learning out, to regularly come back to key topics. 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 6 times to make sure that that information is remembered. Remember, we only have learned what we can remember. And we mustn't just think, well, I've done that topic, I understood it at the time, I don't need to come back to it. Students need to plan in their study time opportunities to revisit things that they covered in year 10. They need to practice what they studied last month as well as what they're actually studying this particular week. And the key message is that revision needs to start now. This is really important, that revision should be like a snowball. Start quite small. Don't burn yourself out, and then gradually that snowball grows. Your memory of all the key information grows. We're suggesting that students on a typical school night spend a couple of additional hours beyond their normal lessons, revising and doing the homework tasks that have been set. Probably taking maybe like a Friday off, but also using either a Saturday or Sunday to go back over older material, to revise those difficult topics and to regularly test and quiz themselves. It's really important that they keep up to date with the tasks on Go for Schools and that they do work hard. But there is a caveat here, not too hard. We don't want them to burn themselves out. So most of our students who have been really successful report that and this is also shown in the national survey, they're spending about 10 to 12 hours a week additional to what the time spent learning in lessons. And the other really important message is that revision starts now. Mock exams are coming up in November, and those mock exams will form the basis for our estimated grades, and they will go on references, they'll go out to the colleges, and they'll go out to the sixth forms. The last tip is to stay focused. It's really scary when you look at the results of the national survey about what students are doing, about how much study is disrupted via smartphones. So the research suggests that the average student loses 8 minutes out of every study hour due to smartphone distraction. Some students are struggling to concentrate because they haven't got a quiet place to study, or they're struggling to learn effectively because they haven't had breakfast. So they haven't got that nutrition, or maybe they're not doing enough exercise. And it's really, really important that they are focused in lessons and that they are focused on their homework and they're focused on their revision. One last example, it might seem that they're revising really effectively. So you might see lots of pretty mind maps with lots of colours, really detailed flashcards. But whilst these look pretty, these aren't the key to effective learning. So if we actually look at flashcards, they shouldn't be too overcrowded. Students should just be making flashcards on what they don't know. They should be prioritising their weak spots. And it's really important that they don't try and overload those flashcards. So just simply a question on one side and then the answer on the other side, and then regularly asking someone to quiz them on those flashcards is really, really effective. So flashcards, really good for remembering lists, for dates, for key names, for key ideas, key concepts, and for diagrams as well. The technique that's worked for many of our students in the past is to use a set of flashcards. They might have been given them by the teacher, or they might have made them themselves on a key topic, and then to test themselves and to have 3 piles. One is the red box or the red pile. That's stuff that they're struggling to remember. They need to be coming back to that information probably every couple of days, certainly every week. The amber box, the kind of cards that they're pretty good at, they don't need to practice those cards so much. So maybe they come back to those once every 2 weeks. And then the green box is stuff that they've remembered successfully. They can come back to that probably about every month. It's really, really important to regularly go back, even with that green box, and regularly test yourself. Otherwise, that information could disappear from long-term memory. We strongly recommend students using GCSE Pod, but once again, not just simply listening to the pods or making loads of notes from the pods, it's best to start with a quiz or with a test for the students to work out what they don't know from those quizzes and tests. And there's some nice multiple choice quizzes on GCSE Pod, and then to use the pods to do something about what they don't know. So my two key pieces of advice is that we must know about these two key principles of learning. The retrieval practice is absolutely crucial. Practicing pulling information out of your memory regularly is the key to successful learning, and then combining that with spacing that learning out over time, making sure that your memory doesn't fade. Alongside that, just to remind parents and students of our 5 R's. Students do need to take responsibility for their own learning. So we are expecting them to have done some research to prepare for the lesson. We're expecting them to read around or watch around a topic, watch documentaries that we suggest, listen to podcasts. We're expecting them to regularly revise and review using the quizzes and the tests that we set and the past papers we provide on the learning portal. We want them to respond to feedback from their teachers, and we want students to reflect what's working for them, what isn't working, what are their weak spots, and then they should be sharing that with their teachers. If you require any further information, I recommend both the podcast and the website produced by the exam study experts. And if you would like any more detailed information about the exam specifications or further tips, there's lots more information on our website. So thank you very much for listening. I hope I've got some of the key messages across about how to learn effectively. The next steps is to perhaps look at the GCSE Pod video, or you might feel that you now want to actually go on and look at Mrs. Calder's video about all of the amazing opportunities that exist for post-16 education.